I want to draw your attention to the handout I gave you that looks like this. And I think this is a pretty powerful handout and tool for what we're about to be talking about. And that is the emotion of grief, emotions that come with grief, and anxiety. They are not standalone, but they involve a whole lot of other things. I want to encourage you to go online and find an emotion wheel, a feelings wheel, so that you can explore some different words. I remember the first time I did this in a grief group, one of the mothers who had buried her ex-husband, her child's father. So there's one word on here I can't stop looking at. The word grabbed her, and it was the word confusion. I'm so confused. And I think that's a really good word for what we feel in grief and anxiety. I mean, both of those are brought on when we say, I don't know a lot. Years before Jenny died, we had gone through a crisis at a church, and there was a counselor that took me out to eat for lunch. When you are a counselor, you're in counseling all the time. It's just usually over chips and salsa or Olive Garden breadsticks. But she began firing questions at me. And I realized before long that the answer to every question was, I don't know. But I have a real aversion. There's two words I don't want to be called. I don't ever want to be seen as a pessimist. I want to be a realist, but I don't want to be a pessimist, and I don't want to be boring. And I thought, I'm saying I don't know over and over and over again. So gut level truth, I started saying it more like this. I just don't know. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I mean, just trying to emphasize different. I don't know. Where are y'all going to live? I don't know. Is Rick going to stay in ministry? I don't know. Where are you going to work? I don't know. You think you'll be a counselor? I don't know. Where are your kids? I don't know. When are you coming for Christmas? I don't know. I mean, because it was right before Christmas, and it was just, I don't know. Finally, I stood up and I said, you know what? I got to go. I felt my throat. Have you ever felt that feeling, where it clamps and you're about to start squeaking? It was happening. And I stood up and I said, I'll call you later for lunch. I got to go. And so I got to the car and I began to cry out to the Lord, God, you got to tell me something I know. And I don't know if I just remembered or if the Lord just spoke into me, but there were three things that just came to the top of my mind immediately right there. And I still hang on to these today when I go through these moments of I don't knows. I know that God is God. And I know I'm going to see his face. And I know I will have a close circle of family and friends who will walk beside me till I get there. I know that. But outside of that, don't most of us just get to pretend like we know other things? But that's really all we know, is that God is God no matter what happens to us. No matter what our journey looks like ahead, God is still God. And so I want to kind of be with those for just a minute, all the emotions that come in the I don't knows in grief. This is super important in grief work, super important in anxiety work, because catch this, this is out of the Courage to Grieve. Emotional pain feels constant only when all our energy is going to suppressing those feelings that are so hard to suppress. Does that make sense? It feels constant when we're not strong, like we were talking about, when you're just trying to suppress them. And okay, we're about to walk in church. Can't feel that in church. Okay, we're about to do this. You're about to be with friends. You're about to go in Walmart. You can't feel that. After Jenny died, I cannot tell you how many times I walked in Walmart. I headed toward the carrots and turned right around and did a U-turn and got back in my car, but I don't really need carrots today. I didn't know what to do with myself because I wasn't sure who could hold the emotion beside me that was flowing out of my eyes. I didn't know who could be there, the emotions of it. As I said last time, strength is way overrated. Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Strength is way overrated even amongst church people. We got to find a place that we can say, not feeling so strong today. And that somebody else who loves Jesus walks beside you and said, and that's okay. I'll be with you. Shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm. We limp together toward his face. Truth. Now, right here, before we get too far into the emotion of talking about this part, as I shared with you last time, I know grief is just one big ball. We've talked about the physical. Now we're going to talk about the emotional. This afternoon, we're going to cover relational and spiritual. We're going to cover some different things, but in emotion, we've got to address this. I have so many grievers come to me and say, I'm depressed. Grief and depression are not the same. They might look the same. The symptoms might feel the same, but depression is from a place of lack of health. Depression is unhealthy. Depression it's rooted in what we call cognitive distortions. I taught first grade for 12 years. In that language, we called it comes from stinking thinking. It comes from thinking things that aren't accurate, from maximizing, minimizing, being a victim, or feeling like you have to be a champion. There's 10 things Dr. David Burns has online that are beautiful about cognitive distortions. But grief, it's not a distortion. It can become that, but it's not rooted in that. Grief is rooted in love. You're not going to grieve what you don't love or someone you don't love. People who love hard are going to grieve hard. But we've got to do grief work. That it can very quickly turn to depression if we become stuck in our grief. If we deny emotion, it can become stuck. When we do not speak about emotions, when we don't allow ourselves to, or give our children a venue to do that, the emotion sits in the driver's seat of your life. But when we're able to talk about it and say, I feel afraid about this. This is scary to me. When we don't give ourselves permission to say that, and we don't hold space with another person who needs to say that, grief sits in the driver's seat. Speaking it, hearing it, listening to it, moves the emotion to the passenger seat. There is power in expression, verbally and non-verbally. There is power in expression. I believe we've got to figure out how to hold space. We've got to figure out how to say, tell me more. And I'll talk more about that in the relationship side, which will be right after lunch. The number one thing about emotion that I recommend to people is get curious. Get really, really curious. See what comes up for you. Look at pages like the one I just gave you about where are you today, the little stick figure people. Where are you today? Looking at an emotional wheel and come up with 3. Most of the time, our children and adults will say 3 things. I'm either mad, I'm glad, or I'm sad. And there's a lot of other emotions inside of either one of those, aren't they? Tell me more. I want to know more. What else are you? Let me speak this very clearly, just because I want to tell you this. Anger, the mad part, is very, very rarely a primary emotion. My language is typically, it's never a primary emotion. I think when we're mad, when I feel angry, there's always something underneath it. That's either when I'm so confused I don't know the way out, or I wish you hadn't treated me like that. I feel fear. I feel disappointment. It looks like mad because our world receives mad better than it receives disappointment. Does that make sense? We show up more for mad. Disappointment, nobody knows what to do with that. So disappointed that happened. I'm going to say this one thing and then I'm going to run, and we may cover it again this afternoon in spiritual. What if God's the one you're disappointed with? We got to be able to hold space for that too. Lots of the Psalms address just being disappointed. That's not bad and that's not wrong. Got to hold space with that and figure it out and be safe with hearing that. Give me feedback. Does that make sense? I said I was going to say it and run, and I'm sitting with it for just a minute. When we read the Psalms, there's so much lament in the Psalms. But in our churches, we don't even sing many songs about lament. But we've got to be able to hold space with that and claim that in our heart. So 3 things that I want us to give ourselves permission for under emotional. I give myself permission to experience what comes up for me emotionally. Power in language. For children, Their language is frequently play or movement. We watch children work out problems in sand, on the playground, letting them run, little girls with Barbie dolls. It's interesting to hear the conversations, but they are working out, they're figuring it out through play. That is a child's language, through play. Maybe if you don't remember anything else I say, maybe for this session and the last one, I'm going to say some things I want you to remember. Well, in the next one too, listen to this one. The more self-aware I can be, the better chance I have of not hurting another. The more self-aware I can be, the more I know about my emotion and I'm not trying to suppress it. The more self-aware I can be, the better chance I have of not hurting another. People who suppress can come out with a lot of rage and anger, and then they're shocked. What did I just do? But it's when we go, it's when we go to the last part of our brain, that limbic system. We're not in that wisdom part. Getting some good breaths. Self-aware people don't always hurt another, or very frequently. There's another concept I want you to listen to, and that is self-compassion. I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. I taught first grade for 11. I was a school counselor for 1. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 12. I was in elementary school for 12. And then I've been doing this. I just finished 20 years as a counselor. It just hit me day before yesterday that September 1st of 2002 was my first time to become full-time in counseling. I'd done some, like I did teaching, and then I did counseling at night. But it's my first time I went into it full-time. But there's a concept that has grown really near and dear to my heart. I love it, and it's called self-compassion. Through my mothering and through my teaching, I've never been a fan of self-esteem. I believe that when you go hunting for self-esteem, the only thing you get, this is just me personally, friends and watching children, the only thing we get is a greater awareness of how little we have of it. You know, I'm not sure that self-esteem is the goal, but I love the concept of self-compassion. It's when we learn to talk to ourselves like you would talk to a friend. Would you agree with me that most of us, all of us, are meaner to ourselves in our own head than we would ever be out loud to another person? True? I call myself names, or used to call myself names. I never call another person out loud. I'm abrupt with me. Listen to me clearly. I believe that we've got to become purposeful and intentional about talking to ourselves like the Lord wants us spoken to. Talking to myself like the Lord wants me spoken to. And I think the Lord covers his ears at some of the things we say within the walls of our own head. But self-compassion, it's where we learn to give ourselves permission to feel. It's when you talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. It's when we're able to hold space with ourselves and get curious with us about what shows up. Part of my own self-compassion journey is I try really, really hard, and you may have already caught me because I'm trying this, okay? I'm a couple of years into this, but I try not to say should. If I should do something, then I've made the decision, I either want to start doing it or take it off the list, right? I should pray when I wake up in the morning. Well, figure out a way to make that happen, or stop shouldn't it, right? Don't do that. Should is a shaming word. I should cook more meals at home. Well, if I should, then either make the choice to do it or start to love Chick-fil-A, right? You know, either figure it out, because it's shaming. We're so shaming to ourselves. Romans 8:1, I believe it's the most unintentionally used verse. We don't touch this. We quote it, we sing it, but we don't intentionally focus on it. We don't chase after it. There is no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. And should is a condemning word. Somebody say truth. Isn't that right? It's such a shamer. No condemnation. No condemnation. Look at yourself in the mirror when you get home. There's no condemnation because I love him. I'm in him. There's none. We can't let that show up. So there's none of this, oh, I'm feeling this, but I really should feel this. I shouldn't feel this. I should feel this. It's so wrong to be disappointed with God. I should do this. Got to figure out what we're feeling. Number 2 is that I give myself permission to remember my special person. Now, for those of you that are new in here, I'm kind of interweaving some talk through anxiety, and I'm interweaving it with some grief. This one is pretty standalone grief. Well, it could be I can see some anxiety in there too. I give myself permission to remember my special person. We give ourselves permission to put up pictures. We give ourselves permission to cook recipes. We're about to have an event at Jenny's Hope, which is our grief center, where everybody gets to bring their special person. That's what we call the person who died. They get to bring their special person's favorite food. And if it's desserts, all desserts show up, we're ordering pizza. We'll probably really and truly we're ordering pizza in advance anyway, just in case. But we just see. But remember, do the recipes to share stories about them. We work with so many children that say, my mommy and daddy, they cry when we share stories about our special person. There may be tears, but tears are okay, right? I think the parents need to say that too. Is you remember, it's one way to keep the memory alive. It's one way that we remind ourselves that their lives mattered. I'm still chewing on a piece of research I saw probably a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago now. Still chewing on this. It says, we find that people aren't as afraid of their own death as they are fear that they won't have peace in their lives, and that they won't fully believe that their lives mattered, that they fulfilled a purpose while their feet walked on dirt. And that's what really put us the under focus of everything I want to share with you today. I'm going to be talking about peace a lot, but I'm also going to be talking about the undercurrent, that what you do matters. The way you treat grieving children matters. The way you treat children in anxiety matters. Let's go one more. The way you treat grieving adults matters. The way you treat adults in anxiety matters. Okay, let's keep going with that. Even if that's the checker at Walmart, but you don't even know her name or his name. It is time for the people of God to stop being the angry ones. It's time for the people of God to be the ones that we're giving people the smiles and the bright eyes, and we're saying, you matter. We see you. We hear you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Y'all, Walmart right now in Decatur, Texas is remodeling. I mean, the parking lot, people coming out are like, whoa, that was horrible. I can't find one thing. And this is really true. Last Sunday afternoon, I ran to Walmart to grab something. And I was like, an adventure. And the lady behind me was like, what? I said, it's going to be an adventure going to Walmart today. I like looking for stuff. And she's like, oh, maybe we should like it. And I'm like, yeah, try it. It's fine when you go. I just knew in advance, you're not going to be able to find anything easily. It's going to take a minute. But I remember in COVID, did y'all have empty shelves in COVID? I remember the worker that I was, we all had masks on. So I kept praying, everyone would go, just help me to have kind eyes, help me to have kind eyes. Since I was going in to see surgeons, and I shared with the first group, I went through a breast cancer battle in COVID. And so, my plastic surgeon, I've never seen his face. I've just seen his eyes. I've never seen him without a mask on. And I looked at one of the workers, and her eyes just looked so tired. I said, thank you for what you're doing. She pulled that mask off. She said, what'd you say to me? I said, thank you for what you're doing. She thought I was being sarcastic. And I said, I'm so grateful that you're showing up here and you're stocking the shelves as best you can. She said, thank you. I haven't heard a kind word in 2 weeks being at the store. But it's where we show up and we give people permission to feel what they're feeling, and we show gratitude, which is where I'm going in just a minute. I have a candle in my kitchen. There's my Jenny candle. I don't talk about it a lot. A friend gave it to me not too long after she died, and it's huge. And every time I want to remember her or dance to a song we used to dance in the kitchen to when I want to be with her, I light the candle. I don't make a big deal about it at holidays. I just light the candle. It's my special candle when I'm remembering. And I love that. I teach grievers to do that. Do something that is giving you permission. It's your secret. that you can remember your person. Number 3, and this is the one we're going to camp out on for a minute, is I give myself permission to experience joy and peace. It's so interesting, the first session that I have with grievers after they've had their first, after they've heard their voice of laughter after a death, or after the day that it wasn't the first thought when they woke up in the morning. What we've all reported is that it feels disloyal when we start to feel happy. I remember the day I was in Memphis. I went with Casey, who grew up at this church. I went with Casey to a Bible study that she was part of called Downline. And there was a beautiful woman that walked to the podium. She was early 40s. And she said, you know, when I was a young woman, I was engaged to be married. And my fiance decided he didn't love Jesus anymore and he didn't want to follow him. And she said, I broke up with him. And I knew that God was going to give me another man. And he didn't. And all I'd ever wanted in my life was to be married with children. And I didn't get them. So now here I am in my 40s. But she said, one day I found this verse. I could quote this verse. Surely I can sing this verse. I can't think of what song it's in. But we all know it. It's Jesus speaking, John 10:10, where he says, the thief has come to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I have come, Jesus says, that you may have life in abundance. And then this beautiful woman, early 40s, said, even when disappointment strikes, even when, as Job would say, the worst of your fears has come true. The abundance of Jesus, the abundance of the Lord is still ours, right? I think the power of darkness plays a game with us, thinking that our time walking on dirt is what he's come to kill or what he's come to destroy. But I believe that what he's really come to steal and to kill and to destroy are things the Holy Spirit's given to us. I think what he really comes to kill and to destroy is our peace, is our joy, is our kindness. All those Galatians 5 things, the fruit of the Spirit. That's what he's really come to attack. But Jesus, I've given it to you. And so what that means to me is my heart is just so big and it's not getting any bigger. That's just the size of my heart. And the Holy Spirit has already provided me with all the things he promises. Peace is already in my heart. Joy is already in my heart. The kindness, the patience, self-control, all the things. But what voice is louder in our hearts? What voice takes up more ownership? And it's quieting our fears. And it's learning to fight for what the Spirit has given us, that it can be louder inside of us. Give me feedback. Am I making sense? Are you tracking with that? What does it mean? What does it look like? What does it mean to fight for peace? What does it look like to show up? My breast cancer hashtag was hashtag peaceful warrior. I mean, we were at war to get this cancer out of my body. It's not my cancer, just cancer in my body. We were at war to get it out. But I didn't want it to rob me of my peace. I went into so much fear in those early days when we didn't know where it was or how bad it was. And then my youngest daughter-in-law's, her father was diagnosed 2 weeks before me with stage 4 terminal kidney cancer. And he died 2 weeks after my first set of clear scans. So my whole journey, we're watching Doug, he's a great friend of ours, watching him go through a dying process. I'm unclear what kind of process I'm going through. They don't tell you all that. They don't know all that. And so I remember being on a Zoom call. Who hasn't done a lot of Zoom through COVID? I was doing lots of Zoom counseling, and this wasn't as a counselor, it was as a friend. I was visiting with a psychologist whose wife had just died. And so we worked together 2 hours every other week, just not, he wasn't my client. We just did it as friends. And I remember the time he talked about his own grief for an hour. And then he said, we're just friends, right? Friends. No paperwork, no money. But where is he going? No money, no money exchanged. He said, then I want to turn it on you. Tell me how you are. I heard you had his son is my son's friend. Heard you had a recurrence. I want to know what's going on. I want to know how you are, how you're doing. And I just began to weep and to tell him and to disclose to him all the things in my own anxiety. And you know what came up is the number one thing I was afraid of. This is really true. Y'all can laugh if you want to. It's really true. My pictures aren't done. They were in boxes. And I'm like, my kids aren't going to know what to do with all my pictures. I think Jenny would have known, but the boys are going to be like, throw them away. We don't want them. Like, I got to get them in albums. He's like, get them in albums. Because he wasn't speaking to me like, you're going to live. You're going to be fine. Because he didn't know that. His wife had just died. Are you tracking with me? Showing up. What do you need? And then he's the one that gave me this verse. Oh, here it is. And I put it number one in this. I put it number one in our little scripture binder. This was out of Eugene Peterson's work, The Message, 2 Corinthians 4, 17, 18. Oh, so we are not giving up. How could we? Even though on the outside, it often looks like things are falling apart on us. On the inside, for God is making new life. Not a day goes by without his unfolding grace. Even if, even when, not a day goes by without his unfolding grace. Even dying is part of the sacred journey, huh? Not a day goes by. Listen to this one out of Isaiah. Now, this is one thing I've learned about Isaiah. I'm not a theologian, so you may know more than I know about this. I hang out with some people that are theologians and that know stuff. But what they tell me is that all the words around created, creator, created, creation, what book of the Bible do you think has that word? I'll ask you, what book of the Bible do you think has that word more than any other? Genesis. That's what I would think too, but it's not. That's the obvious answer. It's Isaiah. Is that not weird? It's like, no, it's got to be Genesis. But listen to this. In Genesis, God created out of nothingness. But in Isaiah, God recreates out of brokenness. See why I would be passionate about that? Get it? Listen to this verse. Isaiah 42, 16. This is after he's done the roar. Man, the beginning of Isaiah is so dark. And then he does this roar, and it's all the get up passages. I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths, I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. These are the things I will do. I will not forsake them. Isn't that a beautiful passage when you're struggling with anxiety or with grief? Doesn't it feel like you're blind? You don't know where to walk, don't know how to walk, don't know where to take the next steps, don't know what to do next. Lots of things are coming up for us in the unknown, but we're claiming that we know God will give us light for the next step, not for the next steps. Just give it to me for the next step, just for the next one, just for the next one. I want to address joy for just a little while, and then I want to come back and do some more peace things. This is not Christian research. This is just research. Joy is the most foreboding of every human emotion. Most of us do not give ourselves permission to fully show up and experience joy because we say things like, if I fully give myself to joy, when's the other shoe going to drop? That's when the other shoe drops. When I show up with joy, when I show up with abandonment, when I show up, it's a good day. with joy. We kind of walk, particularly after you've known pain, we kind of walk around just, well, I might feel joy for a minute, but something bad's about to happen. I've had people tell me that. What about you? If it's a good day, but the day isn't over yet. Don't we say things like that? It just started. It's brand new. We don't know what's about to come down. We're kind of prepared for it. The thief has come to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But we are warriors. No, it might be a scary emotion, and the rest of the world might feel afraid to feel joy. I might feel afraid to feel joy, but I'm giving myself permission to show up in it anyway. What about you? That's what we do. That's what we do. We give ourselves permission. As I shared last time, grief and joy can hold hands. Now, there's something that grievers do that now's just a great time to tell you. Well, that's not true. All people do this. It's not just grievers. All people do this. I usually do this in talks about grief. All of us do it, and that is we numb hard emotion. Now, sometimes when we talk about numbing hard emotion, we think about things that are like not good, too much alcohol or drugs. Those can definitely be used to numb emotion. I'm working with a kid that almost got fired from a prominent job in our community. He's a leader of a huge corporation in our community. But he started excessively drinking. And then the more we kept working, which is his business, before they fired him, told him he had to come see me. I love those visits, when they have to come because they're in big trouble. Takes us a while to get through that. But he really wanted to keep his job. So he was really cool to come. When did you start drinking? Oh, I really didn't drink as a teenager. What we find is kids start drinking young from social anxiety. And then because before they go to a party or something, I didn't drink as a kid. Well, when did you start drinking? I was 22. What else happened when you were 22? Talk to me about that. Well, that's when my parents got divorced, but it didn't bother me that much. But you know what else can be numbers? I hate to give you this. It's really true. Social media, scrolling. I love social media. I'm all over, so I like it. But if I scroll mindlessly, if I'm not looking for something, if I'm just scrolling, an hour can go by. Now I got pictures and boxes I'm trying to do. I mean, it's like, wait, what just happened? What just happened? Sleep. Too little sleep, too much sleep. Busyness can be a number. If I'm feeling hard emotion, I've had people, I just try to keep busy. You heard that before? I just try to keep busy. How many of us, I just keep myself busy so I don't have time to think about it? Anger can be a number. I've already told you this. If I can act mad, it's different than acting sad. Mad is more easily presentable in our world than sad. Numbers, too much television, sleep, too little sleep, too much food, too little food, even too much social, not enough time alone. Are you with me through that? Now, I don't always tell people this, but just to give you an example of a way that I numbed, I think you'll be able to relate to this. Our family this is not a story that flatters me at all, but it really is a truth. Well, I've added, my husband said, have you embellished it a little? Well, a little I have, just to kind of make my point. So I'll tell you that in advance. It's just a little embellishment. But our family does the every other year. We get together at Christmas one year, Thanksgiving the next year. The year before Jenny died was our Christmas year. The next year was our Thanksgiving year. Now, at the time, I had a son that was a worship minister in Houston. Josh, who you know, is a worship minister a preacher in Memphis. So worship minister in Houston, preacher in Memphis. Jenny was a children's minister in Keller. So after every holiday, everybody goes home on Saturday because everybody's got church stuff on Sunday. So everybody's leaving. Saturday morning, I got up. After Thanksgiving, the year after Jenny died, I fixed a big breakfast. Everybody ate. Everybody starts leaving. We live on a major road in Decatur, Texas. I'm the grandmother out there in my robe. I act like I'm chasing the cars. I'm yelling, Audie, and the grandkids know to yell, oh. I mean, we do this little thing that after they leave. So I'm running down the street, and then all of a sudden it hit me. Before Jenny got in the car every year, she would always whisper to me, Mom, let's get together for dinner tonight. Because she knew after being with everybody and the house was quiet, it was like, oh, when am I going to see them again? Because everybody lived hours away. And this year, nobody's coming back for dinner. So I walked back in the house. Now, my husband has a different reaction. He loves when everybody's there, but when everybody leaves, he's like, woohoo, you know, I get her back to myself again, because he doesn't feel like he gets all of me while they're all there. And he's right. And so he's kind of happy about it. So he was already in his recliner watching football or something. And gut level truth, I found myself in my pantry with the door closed. Should have known that was going to be a problem, but I didn't yet. And I start looking over the shelves. I'm thinking, I want something carbohydrate-y and I want something crunchy. Well, I hate Pringles. I mean, I cannot stand them. I don't like the way they smell. I don't like the way they taste. I don't like the way they make my tummy feel. I mean, ew, they're so greasy on your tongue. I mean, I just don't like them. But Noah, Josh and Casey's youngest, loves Pringles. So I had several cans of Pringles that weren't finished. I began to have a personal eating contest with myself in my pantry that morning. I was not hungry. I just finished a big breakfast. But it's really a fun game, but you stack up Pringles and you see how many you can fit in your mouth at once, you know, and I am so good at this. I mean, like, I didn't know how good I was at it till this day. I mean, I was like, oh, I was getting them big and I was mixing and matching them. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what am I doing? So I tiptoe out of the pantry. I go get the dustbuster. I clean up the mess I've made, because you can't have a personal eating contest with Pringles without making a really big mess. So I tiptoed, cleaned it up, put the dustbuster back, went and found Rick, and I said, hey, let's go out to eat tonight. Let's call friends. Sure, let's call friends. Let's go to Joe T. Garcia's. Great. Called some friends, they went. One was numbing, and one was self-care. Numbing is almost always done in secrecy, silence, and judgment. The other one, it's important for you to know the ending of this, because I still cried myself to sleep that night. So even being with friends did not make the emotion go away. It just comforted my soul to still show up. It built that, what I was talking about the first hour, it built that, it continued to help me build that emotional and spiritual muscle to carry the pain, because I was with my friends. One comforted my soul, even though I was still in grief. One just made me feel horrible, physically and emotionally. The deal with numbing, and why I even tell you that story, is when you numb, it not only numbs what you don't want to feel, but numbing also numbs joy. You cannot experience joy when you're numbing emotion. You can't do it. You've got to give yourself permission to show up emotionally, to show up in the yuck. And the pathway to joy. Again, not Christian research, but this is so Christian. 100% of people that were interviewed by Dr. Brene Brown about joy. Do you feel joy? Yes, I have joy in my life. Tell me about that. 100% had a gratitude practice. Now read the New Testament with that lens. Even when your heart is broken, even when you are in health crisis and you don't know what's about to happen, even if, we still dig in, and you might say it with a shaking voice. I'm grateful for. God, please remind me what I'm grateful for today. I want to be grateful. I have a personal practice that I started when Jenny died. And every night, my journal is in my car, in my bag. Every night, I write 3 to 6 things I'm grateful for that happened that day. Now, I don't want to just do, this is just me, okay? This isn't the research, this is just me. I don't want to do like, it rained today and we needed rain. I want to do something very specific. When I saw this person and they said this to me. When I saw this person and this happened. When I walked outside and that flower was blooming. When my daffodils bloom, they're my flowers of hope that bloom in February, which is our death month. I love, are you tracking with me? When yesterday, I've got so many things about Malaya yesterday. I was with my granddaughter, Jenny's daughter, yesterday. I was with her. And I hadn't been with her in Lubbock. She just moved here, and I haven't been with her in that environment and getting to see her and see her as an adult. And we were talking yesterday, she's adulting. And it did my soul good. But so many moments I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for a couple of quotes I heard yesterday on the way coming, as I was listening to books. Are you with me? But it's got to be with intention. It's not, it was a good day. I have a lot of things to be grateful for. It's even when, man, it was scary and I heard a lot of I don't knows at the doctor today, and I still want to dig in and be grateful. I want to be grateful for the care that they're giving me. I want to be grateful when this person said this to me, or when this person walked into the waiting room. I want to be grateful. Like this morning, I had to go to the restroom before we ended out there. So I did the restroom. I came back in here and I thought I'm going to look over my notes for a minute. And a friend had written me. And she just said, I don't know why, but you're on my heart today. I'm grateful for that. And I'll be in my gratitude journal tonight. And she doesn't know, she's not a close friend. She doesn't know my world. She didn't know where I was or what I was doing or with me. It's just sweet that she would have thought, because I had a lot of emotions starting when I woke up today after seeing Malaya. She's planning a wedding without her mom. I had a lot of emotion when I woke up this morning. But I still want to be grateful for those moments. I am grateful for those moments. That I was with her and I could share life, and I could hear her talking to her boyfriend on the phone and how much she cares for her and it loves her and brings out the best in her. I'm grateful for those things. Gratitude is the pathway to joy. And so let's do another calming mode. You ready? These are things, I love these things. I'm really just now getting started in this. I know a little bit about it. I'm getting trained in it on November 7th. So call me then and I can tell you more about it. But a few things that I'm doing personally and that we're teaching, particularly our children, but I'm also teaching adults in my room, is bilateral tapping. But it's where you give yourself a hug, but you do this. Give it a shot. Try it right now. Give it a shot. Do it in accompaniment with breath, of those breaths that we did earlier. Let's just take a few. Let's go in. Hold it. Out. Hold it. Let's go in. Hold. Out with noise. Let's do one more in. Hold. Out. Hold. A lot of my clients are reporting that this helps them go to sleep at night. If you don't want people to see you do it, let's say you're in public, this is one you can do. You just do it like this, but it can't be like this. It's bilateral. It's getting both sides of the brain involved. And so there's one we taught our little children when I told you we went into school district recently to do some death. You could do it under your desk like this. It's just do it on the side of your knees, whatever. But it's something about calling you into the present. The tapping calls you into the present and opens your world to experience. Opens your world to experience what's around you and what's happening. Help me out for just a minute. We've got a couple of minutes left. Let's just play with this. It's just a little grief activity that I want to share with you. If grief was a color, it would be, what would it be? Black. Black. What else do you have? Anything else? Blue? Because of sadness? Okay, anybody else got one? Okay. If grief was an animal, it would be a bear. Okay. What else? A lion. A lion.
Roadkill is all that comes in mind.
Roadkill.
Whatever animal.
I've done this exercise hundreds of times with children, particularly with adults too. But the one that I can't get off my mind sometimes, it would be a hyena, because I feel like it's laughing at me.
Oh.
I think the power of darkness is laughing. Oh, just let me get afraid.
They're creepy.
If it were, do I?
They're creepy.
Creepy. Yes, they are. If it would be a song, it would be.
before I lost my precious ones, one's really close to me, but, relatives, whatever, it was the old Red Cross. It was sang at every single funeral that I went to.
Do you like that song?
I don't really like that song
Okay.
because as a child, every funeral I went to, it was the old Red Cross. I love the words and the meaning of it. It's associated with that.
Absolutely. Associated with heart emotion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of it as well with my soul. And
Okay.
I think part of it just the reason it was written.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when the bus wreck happened, there was a young man on one of the buses. He was a senior that year. His sister was on the other bus and she was killed. And he, even though he didn't know it, he knew it. And he was singing that song. I don't know. It just kind of takes me.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps. Yeah. Yeah. Some people say it's a dirge. It's just a monotone, dirge. Yeah. If it were a flavor, it would be. Here, this is calling up all your senses. It's helping you think from an emotional standpoint. If grief were a flavor, bitter.
That stuff they make you swallow when you take a colonoscopy.
That makes me twitch, yeah. Sometimes people put black licorice, and then there's always somebody in the group that says, I love black licorice.
Yeah.
If grief were a season, it would be
Winter.
winter. If it were a sound, it would be
Sort of the wind blowing through, whether it's a wind blowing through a tree or wind blowing through.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody got anything else?
Blue northern sound.
Blue northern sound, kind of screeching. Is that kind of a wail? Okay. Okay. Anybody else got anything?
Nails on the chalkboard.
Yes. Nails on the chalkboard. Absolutely. Wow. Oh, listen to this one. If it were a building, it would be. Building.
Old school at night.
A what?
And the old building school at night.
Yes. Yes. Anything else?
Two things come to me.
Okay.
When you're driving down the highway and you see these homes that used to be, they were so proud of it when they built it, and it was so full of life, and it had kids and then it had grandkids, and then it just now is just falling apart and gone, and of absolutely no use back then, and just so deserted. Kind of that just seems, that's death. It's taken away.
Yeah. Yeah. Old, abandoned, lonely. What came up for you as we were doing these? Anything come up for you? It's okay if it didn't, but is there one question that caught your curiosity or anything surprised you?
I like to hear other people's comments because it makes you think, oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You can relate.
I'm so grateful that you said that, because what we find in grief and anxiety, and this is important with adults and with children, is it's not just like events, but it's like emotion that we connect on. Lots of things cause grief reactions in us, not just death. Would you agree with that?
This is really nice. Why every time you talk about grief, you always relate it with funeral, with death?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have grief, but it's not related with somebody's death.
What else would you say causes grief? And then we're going to close. What else?
Divorce.
Divorce. What
My
else?
sister's just gone through a horrible one.
Do what?
My sister's just gone through a horrible
Oh,
one.
I'm so sorry.
It is death.
Yes.
Moving away from it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, every time one of my kids graduated and left home, I went through bad grief.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
because it was a bad thing, it was a wonderful thing that they got to.
Just a
start
transition,
their
right,
journey.
hard
It
transition.
was real grief.
Yes. Were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say moving.
Moving, yes, another transition. Yes. I mean, that's what Malay and I were talking about last night. She said, it's been a hard few months, not because I don't like being here. It's so different. You're making new friends. You don't really know where to go to church, don't know where to go to the grocery store, don't know where the dog parks. I mean, it's a loss. It's a loss and you're trying to find it. Anybody got anything else that's burning in you? What about a diagnosis? Yours or someone else's? Or let's go really deep for just a minute. What about sin? Your own or somebody else's? To grieve, to show up. All the things we've been talking about this morning, the physical things, what we talked about in that first hour, but the emotional things too. Emotions are from the Lord. And He's going to teach us and walk with us through them. It's okay for you to give yourself permission to feel the feels and then to move on. I've had people ask me, if I give myself permission to cry, I'll never stop. I don't know anybody that's never stopped.
And we handle grief in different
Oh,
ways. I mean, my
yes.
children, when my husband died, they were in their twenties.
Yes.
And my son and my daughter handled it completely different.
Yes.
Rebecca is still running from it.
Mm.
So she's gone all the way to Oregon with the grandkids. So but she's made a life for herself and her family there. So that's hard.
It is so hard. It's so
I
hard.
think it's interesting that when James comes to chapter 4, comes to the end of talking about conflict with people and restoration of those relationships and the restoration of relationship with God. He says, weep and wail and grieve, let your laughter be turned to
Yes.
mourning
Yes.
and your joy to grief.
Yes.
That's what has to happen first. Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
But don't we have to give ourselves permission to do that?
Yes.
Because it's not always accepted, even at church.
Mhm.
But to give ourselves permission to show up in that hard and hold space with that. And I'm hoping just with us dialoguing about this today helps us feel more comfortable, not only with our own, but with other people too.
Mm.
Yes, I have a love-hate relationship with those words, but it's so true.
Mhm.
It's so true that we have to show up in the pain to ever feel the good again. If we numb that pain, then we don't get the reward. Man, thank y'all so much. There's so many stories I want to end with, but we're just going to end with thank you for being here, and we'll go eat. And then right after